dive into today's topic. So I'm going to do this a little bit different this time. I typically practice, and I did practice, but I am going to read from this a little bit more because I recognize sometimes I get off topic and I want to provide clarity, make sure I touch on the right points. So for me, I'm going to be reading a little bit more rather than full presentation. And then also I passed out the vision and driving force, which we'll use as a resource, and then a Chinese finger trap. I think I got everybody, but did I miss anybody? I thought I got everybody. Okay, so to get started, just none of this happens without people working behind the scenes to make it happen. So Mark and Kyle getting the shop ready, cleaning up, getting prepared for this. Marshall and Chelsea navigating the food, so we have food set up. And also, just gratitude to the guys that are working second shift and can't be with us today too. I know that this is something we want to be a part of, and to not be able to be a part of sometimes stinks. And then also, sometimes it makes our days longer too when we add this to our day. So thank you guys for being part of that. So why think like an owner? So why would we invest the time and energy and money to do something like this? And the reason is, I think most of our time is spent working in the day-to-day of an active business. We all are doing our job. So thank you guys for the work that you do to bring in jobs, install floors, and support everything that has to happen for this place to run. Think like an owner is a chance to step back from that, and we get to work on the business as a whole. So I want to bring a high level of craftsmanship to my work as the owner of the company. And one of the ways I do that is I want to share how I think and bring others along in that process. So we're not just doing the work, but understanding the system we're building together. So I want to build people that build a business together. Most of our time is spent doing the work. We step back every once in a while. We think about big picture stuff, and we bring the whole company along for that ride. I also want to build something so cool that people don't even believe it's true. So I want to create stories here that people can't believe that we would do a meeting like this in our company. And I hope this meeting helps facilitate that. We're also recording this, and a couple reasons recording it is one is we work some odd shifts here, so not everyone can make it. So I want to have a reference to share with the team. I also always watch the previous year's video too, and I try to make it better and better. The second version is we've posted on YouTube, and I hope a customer finds this, and when they're looking at someone to hire for their project, they say, man, I really like how this company thinks. If they're this intentional with how they operate the business, I bet they're going to bring that same intentionality to how they install floors and stand behind their work. And that's the kind of company I want to hire to do my floors. So I hope that this helps get us more business. And third, I hope that someone's looking to invest in their career, that they're looking for a place to work. And if they're like, if I want to work at a place, if I want to invest my time and my career capital somewhere, I want to do it at a place where I can actually have impact and make a difference. And they see this video and they say, hey, that's the kind of company I want to be a part of. And I think we've seen all three of those play out over and over again. So today starts with strategy is thinking ahead is the topic of today. So every January we talk about strategy. And last year we talked about going on a trip. What does it take to go on a trip? Strategy is the planning associated with a short trip requires less preparation. A long trip requires a lot of preparation. And today we're going to talk about strategy is just thinking ahead. And so when I think ahead and I think about what do I want my work to build towards, it starts with a vision or a driving force that I believe is my life purpose. And then I also believe that something, if I got to do a job or work somewhere, I want to do something that's working towards something pretty cool. And that's what we have here. And I'm going to read this verbatim. But the vision and driving force of our company is to grow leaders who deliver best work. And that's a phrase, it's memorable. But what does that mean? And to me, it starts with the belief. I believe that many young men are smart, hardworking, and can accomplish incredible things. That when they're given the right framework, the opportunity, the training, and the pressure to perform, that they can do work that stands with the best in the world. Working alone, you can build skills, but working with others, we can build impact. Men who master their craft in the process learn to master themselves. So by the pressure of work, we become better, stronger, capable men. And I believe that. I believe that we can live lives that are very distracted, or we can live lives that are very purposeful and focused. And I hope that this place can be a place that helps facilitate that purpose and focus. And so I want to grow young men, and I include myself in these things too. I want to grow young men into responsible, skilled leaders. I want to use Dancer as a platform to showcase work ethic, personal responsibility, financial stability, and character. I want to help young men become great craftsmen, leaders, and the best men. I want to build a respected craftsmanship-based business. Customers trust that when they hire us, that it's going to be done well and with a great level of detail, that Dancer is synonymous with craftsmanship and doing the best work. I imagine we do everything so well that other people use us as an example. And then a sense of adventure in our work, that this work, if we want to do this, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be hard, and it's going to force us to grow. To work here requires a process of formation. Nothing dull, nothing corporate-y. I want to use common sense. I want to help others where we can. I want to work with people we mostly like. I want to do incredible work and projects around the community, and I want to make sure we don't take ourselves too serious. And so when you guys, there's things about this when I read this. I see myself when I was 20 years old and what I wanted to be a part of. I see myself, almost 40 now looking at this and what I want to be a part of. But when I do my day-to-day work, I want it to count towards something other than just paying bills. We work here because we need a job, we got to pay rent, we got to buy groceries, but we can do that anywhere. We could go work anywhere and do that. But for me, I want to work at a place that has a purpose and a vision and working towards something that draws the best out of me and challenges me to grow. But when you guys read this, and we'll just take a couple examples, but when you read this, what gets you excited? Like where, when you read this, does something catch your attention and you're like, yeah, that's what I want to be a part of, or that pulls me to want to be a part of this?
Craftsmanship-based business.
So what gets you excited about that? Why does that phrase do anything for you?
It's fun and exciting to be on a team where we're focused on the quality of our work and quality of our relationships with each other. It makes me feel proud of myself and my work and happy to work with the guys who feel the same way.
Yeah, I would say a sense of adventure. Kind of like 1 week you can be working down the street, and the next week you could be working 2 hours away. It's kind of like the way I see it, like a warehouse job. Like you're walking into the same four walls every single day. You're doing the same thing every single day, like just like a drone. Like it's like a mindless, just same thing every day. But like when you work here, it's literally like I said, like 1 week you could be here, 1 week you could be there, and this week you could be there. Just you're seeing completely different things, doing completely different things, and working through them. And it's like, yeah, it's just like a really dope. Like I've been able to travel the region, cities I've never heard of or whatever, would blink at, that now I'm doing work in, actually doing work with intention and taking something from that to this. And yeah, just like I just think that's, to be able to work somewhere like that is super. I feel like it's a privilege.
So coming back, Marshall, you wouldn't want to be part of a company that's just getting by, trying to slide things by customers. You want to work at a place where the quality of the work matters, and not just not meeting the mark, but going to try to raise that mark or do the best it can.
I've been on the other side of that, and it's embarrassing.
And so your personal values or ethics line up with, you want to do something you're proud of, and that helps you sleep at night. DJ, you don't want to be a mindless worker. You want to use your mind. You want to use your creativity. You want to solve challenging problems, and being at different job sites, different challenges. Even if it's the same grinders, the same coatings, it's different customers, different environment, and you like even though that comes with a lot of nonsense, you like that rather than being mindless. And Marshall, even though that work is going to pull more of you than just getting by, you would rather have a life where you're challenged rather than just like getting by.
Yeah, and it fills the bucket a little further.
Yeah. We'll do one more example, then we'll move on. But anybody else have something where when you read that just something inside of you grabs and says like, yeah, that's what I want to be a part of. And what about that?
Working with people I mostly like,
Yeah.
I came from a place I didn't really like the environment like that, and the people I was surrounded by. So that's different. We really don't take ourselves too serious, and we know how to clown and we know how to have a good time. So that's always a win.
Yeah, so there's going to be conflict anytime you get 40 people together. You're not going to be besties with everybody, but you can mostly like them. And I think a vision and a purpose, what it does is it says, hey, we might be very, very different, but we must believe the same thing because we're both working here for a purpose. And I think that can pull you together and get you with people that, yeah, you mostly like or that you can learn to get along with. I mean, we're probably not all as best friends as Matt and Brandon are. There's no pictures of us in a bathroom together. I mean, that kind of bonding can take years. But they remind us that work is really serious. So strategy is thinking ahead. So if this is the outcome, this is the kind of business or the kind of life we want to be a part of, we got to think ahead to make decisions that get us there. And so today we're going to use Chinese finger trap as an example. And so this is a toy, and when we stick our fingers in this toy, we find ourselves with a problem. I stick my fingers in, and when I pull out, I find that I'm stuck. And because I'm strong enough and I can withstand the little bit of pain that it requires, if I'm stuck in a situation, I can just solve it by brute force. And that does solve my problem. My fingers are now released. But what happens is now I don't have a toy anymore, I have trash. And if I did this 100 times as a rhythm or a process to solve this problem all the time, I might dislocate my finger, or I might cut myself, or who knows what can happen. And so it doesn't actually get me to the end result I want. And so strategy, and most adults can break that. That's a solution for most people. But strategy requires something else from us. Strategy is thinking ahead. So same Chinese finger trap, I put my fingers in, and now I'm going to take a craftsmanship approach rather than a brute force Viking approach. And so I'm going to recognize that I'm stuck. Okay, well, I don't have to freak out. I recognize that there's probably been harder problems in the world than this. I can probably figure out how to do it. I don't know the solution yet. I can wiggle my fingers around. I still can't pull them out. God has provided me with these opposable thumbs, which have been really helpful in my life thus far. So I'm going to push my thumbs on the angles, and I'm going to wiggle, and it seems counterintuitive, but if I actually push in, I can actually slide my fingers out. And so that simple strategy is what thinking ahead looks like. And so it actually required me to pause rather than just use brute force. And it seems slower in the moment because I couldn't just break free and get that relief of like, oh, I'm free, I've got it figured out. It actually felt slower, but it's actually more effective, a more effective way to work. And I would say that all of us sometimes use brute force because we don't pause before we act. And so when we think about that, I'd like to use an example from the field, an example from the shop, and an example from the office. Like where do we sometimes use brute force rather than pausing and thinking and then making a better future by pausing rather than just reacting? And Kyle, you had a pretty good example of the shop. Could you share that with me, or share that with the team of what does it look like to not use brute force but actually pause, think, and then act in the shop?
The example I gave to Nick yesterday was we've all experienced a caked on paddle or a caked on polycrete mixer. And your natural instinct when that gets really hard is to smack it with a hammer and break it free. The problem with that is when it's hardened in the hopper like that, it's going to make the plastic really brittle. So your natural instinct tells you, hey, I want to beat this out of here so that it just falls out and we can move on with it because it'll just crumble and fall. But that might work 1 or 2 times, but it will eventually break the equipment. So the actual correct answer to that is you have to methodically grind it out of there precisely enough where you're putting enough pressure on the tool to eat away the product, but not putting enough pressure down to eat through the product. So it's a balance of give and take where you're going to take off enough where it's going to become usable again, but not take off enough where you're going to destroy it.
So very technically, we mix polycrete and a hippo. Even if you're really clean during the process, there's probably going to be some residual. the initial response could be just hammer it out. And that could work, but it could also break the plastic. And then we have to order plastic and we have to wait for it to get in, and then it gets in, we have to unbox it, put it in, and it just creates kind of a chaos or nonsense, and it's expensive and takes a lot more time than if in the moment we spend our time and use a little bit more finesse and navigate it. Even if it feels slow in the moment, overall it actually puts us in a better spot. So what about in the field? Where in the field sometimes do we use brute force that with the power of a pause, with a little bit of thinking ahead, with instead of just pulling out our problems, we actually think, we pause, we use our thumbs, and we pull out? Where does that happen in the field? Where's
When I was first started, we had take like the 20, eventually 25 up and downstairs. We had the lifting straps.
yeah.
I like to say I was the one who thought, let's get a $2 cut down the tree and dolly.
Yeah, so that's one right there. So just to recap, we use dollies now as a standard to move. We even have a powered dolly to move things when we have to move stairs. But those lifting straps that you put over your shoulders and you move like a fridge with or a stove, that's exactly how we used to run the machine. And before we had box trucks, that's also, we had to physically lift the 20-inch head into the van as well. And so we paused, we said, hey, there's probably a smarter, safer way to do this. Let's use a two-wheel dolly instead of the lifting straps. What about in the office? Where on the office side do we sometimes use brute force where thinking ahead could be a more effective strategy?
There are times where the project goes sideways a little bit. We're trying to figure out how to get the work done. The right move is to maybe add a day or take a step back rather than just say, let's hold longer days and just find a way to make it work.
Yeah, so pausing, think, is this the most effective strategy? Okay, it's gonna need an extra day. What does that look like? How do we support it? Things like that. So those are all ways to think ahead. And what I don't like is where somebody says, all right, think ahead. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean I got to think like 2 hours ahead, 2 days ahead, 2 years ahead? Like, what do I use in that moment to think ahead, to be somebody that's a more strategic thinker rather than a reactor? And I think I would follow a process like this to think ahead. And so to think ahead for me means name the aim. And so naming the aim is, what am I pointing towards? What's the goal I want to achieve here? In our business, in the field work, it's, hey, how do we deliver best work? And what does that look like? And so I'm trying to think about what the future outcome I need is. And that could be schedule dependent, it could be best work dependent, it could be how does that affect other jobs? The next thing is reduce the risk. So what could go wrong? There's also a phrase called fear setting, and it's this idea of like, what could go bad and how do I reduce the risk? So Roger, coming back to your two-wheel cart example, it's like, all right, nobody got hurt doing those lifting straps, but we all know that what does it look like to reduce the risk on that? Because it does put us in a higher risk position. So we're just trying to avoid the worst outcome by avoiding risk. The next part is think in systems. So also to think, hey, am I solving this just one time right now, or am I creating a system or a pattern that I would actually want to be repeated 100 times? So if I had to do this thing 100 times again, what's the outcome? How could I think in a system or a multiple rather than just solving it for right now? And I got to determine, am I solving this with a bad habit or a good system? And then what's the next best step? So sometimes we can get overwhelmed with, all right, here's the aim, here's the outcome I want, I've reduced the risk, I've thought in systems, but then I get stuck because maybe not everything is ideal. And I have to determine, I am not gonna sit in a Chinese finger trap for 4 days trying to figure it out if I can't figure it out. And so I gotta know, like, what's the next best step if I can't get out? What do I need to call someone? Do I need to ask a friend? Like, what's my next best step so I don't get stuck in that spot? So how to think ahead means name the aim, look at the future. How do I reduce the risk? Think in systems or multiples, and what's the next best step to keep moving along? When we think strategically and we have a framework to operate from, I think we get closer and closer to the vision. And I think our core values shape those behaviors, that these are tools to use in strategy. Like if I have to plan something, if I have to live a good life that gets me that outcome, I believe these core values get us closer and closer to there. And so by working here, I think that we should see these core values play out in one another. People on the team should count on them from us, and that customers might not use the same language, but they recognize this is what they get from they work with us. So they're gonna say, hey, those guys are really consistent and they show up. Those guys have things really dialed in. They're willing to do things off shift or work longer to get an outcome done. I see a lot of young men with high skill sets. I always know what's going on with my job. Like those things are things that customers appreciate. And these were not just pulled randomly. And what we did with these is when the company was like 6 to 8 people, we said, what are the best traits of our group that we think that we live out naturally? And if each of us are stronger or weaker in different areas, but how would we want to create a future company? What would that core behaviors be that would create an incredible business? And this is what came out of it. And so this is also the time during the strategy session where we also recognize someone who lived this core value out the most this year. And so I'm going to read the core value, and then we had our company annual planning session. We each have our own individual planning sessions, but we had our business annual planning session this week, and we selected people who we thought lived this out this year. And so each person that gets selected, we have a $100 gift card to various restaurants. I'll get with you next week to get you that. And some of these people aren't here, but we'll just recognize them. So strong and steady. We find a flow in what we take on. We're known for our hard work ethic, problem-solving skills, and positive attitude. So our team decided that Roel lived out strong and steady in a way that we'd want to emulate this year. He was at Homestead through multiple leadership. He stayed consistent. We counted on him a lot, even though he's new in his career here. And I think he showed a strength and a consistency that was very beneficial and in a way that we'd want to emulate. So he's not with us this morning, but that's somebody that I think lived out strong and steady. Neat, clean, and organized. A sense of order is not just for good looks. We believe it supports the flow, it drives creativity, and helps deliver the best work. And I think Mark lived this out through 2025, and we will applaud Mark because he's here with us. Mark has been in our vehicles with us in the morning with a headlamp. He's helping us load, showing us how to strap things down. He's here at the end of the day to help us unload. He's up in our business in a good way that helps us grow better. He's holding us to high standards. He's willing to sacrifice to help us operate more neat, clean, and organized. And I think if that kind of behavior helps us be a stronger business. More than one means we set aside the pursuit of me to first serve the mission and the team. And this goes to Diego for 2025. And Diego is with us today. So we'll celebrate Diego. No one worked more off-shift work, combination of off-shift work, travel, Saturdays, and consistency at Huntington than Diego. And so he has, we can only say yes to our customers at the rate in which our team says yes to the opportunities. And when somebody says, yeah, like put me in, you can count on me, I'm here, it allows our business to serve our customers really well. And I thought that was a great example of living that. Always growing. We grow by leaning just beyond our security and comfort. It's our duty to expand upon what we've been given. That's going to go to Torin. Torin is not with us today. He got his wisdom teeth taken out Wednesday. But Torin has, I think, grown incredible. I've been around him several times during the mix station, and he just owns it. He's very accurate. He sticks with it. And I think he's been part of a lot of incredible jobs with Yellow this year, and I've seen him grow in a way that I think he's going to be a great asset in our future as well. And then thoughtful communicators. We're intentional in how we speak and listen. We communicate what is kind, necessary, and true. That goes to Ashton. Ashton is not with us right now, but I've got several phone calls this year from customers that said, hey, I just want to let you know, You got a guy on your team that communicates really effectively. He talks positive about the business. Superintendents are excited to work because there's good, clear communication, doing group text to keep his team updated, navigating challenging situations, and keeping the office involved in what's going on with the job and how we can pivot. I think he does a really good job keeping us all informed. And so those are our core value awards for 2025. So as we finish this out and we go into 2026, I want our business to focus on building powerful teams. And to me, powerful teams are lean, high-performing, and grounded in craftsmanship. I think that we can increase our skill, and with increased skill, we work more efficiently, we make fewer mistakes, and we deliver more consistent best work to our customers. I think when we do that, the reputation grows, we get better and better jobs, and our compensation to the team grows. So as we get more powerful, as we get more skilled, it's a cycle or a flywheel that continues to feed itself and we get better and better. And so I think great craftsmanship is thinking ahead, and great craftsmen are strategic. Strategy is the discipline to pause, to think, and choose the best approach for the situation. And our choices that we make every day determine the future we have. And so some of those choices, we will make a choice this morning that will impact us tonight. Some choices we make today might be long-ranging impact. But here's the kind of question I'd want to leave with is, think about just your role, your responsibility. It's so easy when we think about this to think about other people like, oh, they should do that differently. But we all have enough decision-making autonomy in our own life that can impact us profoundly, that we don't even have to worry about the other decisions that are being made for us. So I would just say, based upon your role, how do you think one step further ahead to strengthen the team you're part of? So think about the team that you're on. So Mark and Kyle are part of the shop team, which is part of the dancer team. DJ is part of the orange team, which is part of the dancer team. Jake, you're part of the office operations team, that's part of the dancer team. So we have like subsystems or sub teams, and then we have a team overall as a company. But what's one thing I can do to strengthen the team I'm a part of? And then the next time you feel stuck, the next time you want to just react, you just remember this silly finger trap, that pulling harder might work, but it often creates a mess. Pausing feels slow, but it can typically lead to better work, stronger teams, and a better future. And that's what I think strategy, thinking ahead is if there's one thing we could remember is the rest of our life, we could remember the silly finger trap in a strategy meeting. And it not only impacts us here at work, but in our whole life is, when can I pause and make wiser decisions that lead to better outcomes? Marshall, you get to close us out?
Absolutely. We're going to revisit our old friend Sun Tzu, legendary samurai group, Art of War. And this quote explores the relationship between strategy and execution. Because we're stuck in a finger trap. We can strategize all we want, but we also have to execute the strategy. So strategy without tactics, and in this case we'll call that execution or actions. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat.
Nice, guys.